So, Kate, what we're talking about is how to live a Christian life. What is for you a Christian life?
So for me, I guess living a Christian life is following the commandments that Jesus gave us, and he was very, very specific about that. And he gave us 2 commandments: to love, the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and to love one another as I have loved you. And it sounds really simple, but I think it's not easy.
I know you say it's simple, but to me it doesn't sound simple. What is that way of love?
So I think throughout the Gospels we're shown sort of illustrations of times when Jesus stepped out from behind sort of the barriers that were created socially at that time, and broke through those barriers, with sort of radical inclusion. So we see him sitting at the well with a Samaritan woman who, and that would have been, it seems it's just a story that we read now, but in its context in its day, that would have been, to sit with a woman, to sit with the Samaritan woman would have been, an outrageous thing to have done. And he sat with her and took water from her. And that equally would have been very, very taboo. So he really showed that, to be out on the edges, to be with people that are marginalised and excluded, is part of how we live out that gospel of love.
So what does that achieve?
So for me, it would achieve harmony and peace.
Mm-hmm.
That if we broke down those barriers between us, and we truly loved, people that we may even now consider, dislike or consider as our enemies, that if we learnt to love them and to love each other, then we wouldn't see each other go without. So we would see somebody hungry or homeless or in debt, or living in squalor. There'd be more
harmony is quite a good word, isn't it?
And peace in the world, because why would we fight each other if we actually, really truly loved one another and loved one another? And I think that's always hard, isn't it? But the same God loves us all, even the people that we don't like. That same God loves us all. It's only us that holds that judgment, not God.
You see, that's a very interesting concept, isn't it? The same God loves us all. Yeah. So there's something in there then about forgiveness.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How big is that for you?
Forgiveness, massive. And again, I think that's not an easy thing to do, to truly forgive someone, especially if you've been hurt or wounded or insulted or upset by someone. It's never easy to forgive. But there's a definition of forgiveness that enables me to be able to do that more readily. Forgiveness does not mean that I excuse what you did. It simply means I am no longer willing to carry the pain of it.
Yeah.
And I think in that, if we are willing to put down the pain of what has hurt us, there's room then for healing. And when there's room for healing, then that changes us. But that all comes from a place of love.
I'm wondering from what you've said whether at the heart of Christianity is the belief in the ability to transform.
Yes.
Is that the kernel? Yeah. Can you actually follow a Christian path if you don't believe that we all have the ability to transform, to change, to become, if you like? Because I think for me that's the centre of it.
The transformation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because I think that's where Christian hope lies. That we all have this in us to be better than we are. Yeah. And I don't just think of it as an individual thing, but more radically maybe nations can transform, and the planet.
So we really can change the world.
Yeah. What about the sort of, a lot of people would say Christian life is about a moral kind of life, a life with rules.
I think sometimes we've been far too focused on rules and life, and they almost set us up for failure. And again, I would come back to that principle of love, Because if everything we did came from a place of love, we wouldn't need all the rules and regulations,
Right.
if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
And
But
so-
maybe you could say a bit more though, because that's interesting. You wouldn't need the rules
No.
maybe if you were motivated by love.
Yeah.
Why would you not need the rules?
Because love would inform every decision we made. So I suppose the question would be, there's that thing of what would Jesus do? But what would love do?